So in this video, or in this series of videos, I'm going to cover flying to the Bahamas. And I'm going to try to do this in a way that I cover all of my steps that I did preparing for the trip and coming back. So the first thing to discuss are the N numbers on the airplane. There is a requirement that we have in 12-inch N numbers. You'll notice my airplane doesn't have them, at least on the side. Now I do have N numbers up here on the wing that's covered, but there are exceptions to the 12-inch N numbers, so read the document. It's not really that big of a deal, but there are exceptions. The next thing is that you have to get a custom sticker, and you just put it on the steps or around the door. You'll also need to get a radio license, and the radio license is a little bit of a oddity to me because I've never had anybody ask for it, and it's rather expensive to get, but the airplane itself is supposed to have a radio license, so you have to get that. You'll also need to get a life vest, the Coast Guard certified life vests for each person in the airplane. And then obviously your papers that you normally have, your registration, weight and balance, airplane performance stuff, and your registration. So those are really the only things that are required for the airplane itself. And if you're flying a single engine, I'd probably also recommend getting a raft. Might not even be a bad idea in a twin, but I'm not messing with the raft. And so those are the primary things that you have to fly over to the Bahamas for the airplane itself. And then I'm going to do some other videos on the paperwork and those kind of things as well. Okay, so what we're going to do is go through some of the documentation for the Bahama trip. Now, this is they call it the Private Pilot Guide to the Bahamas. You can get this off of Google. Just search for it. It's actually a pretty good document here, and so I'll cover some of the basic stuff. So this document has most everything in it that you would need to make your trip to the Bahamas. So we have the telephone numbers here for getting weather and filing your flight plan and that kind of stuff. If we go over, let's see, so here we start getting into our checklist items. So it tells you here that you have to file a flight plan, either and it has to be an international flight plan. ForeFlight and Garmin and most of the other GPS systems that are out there for aviation can file an international flight plan. You also need to file an eAPIS manifest outbound and inbound. There is a program that you can get called FlashPass that does a really good job. You go in and add your airplane, you put in your custom sticker number, you put in each person along with their passport information, and then it will act and tell it, obviously when you're going to file or when you're going to fly, and it'll file all of the necessary paperwork for you for going in and out of the United States. So I highly recommend getting FlashPass for that. And so it tells you here, we file a flight plan, do your eAPIS. You must have a Coast Guard approved life jacket for each person. And then you have to activate your flight plan before leaving Florida, and it gives you the frequency. So you either use Fort Pierce, Miami, or Palm Beach. Obviously, if you're IFR, it'll get activated when you get your clearance. So prior to landing, you have to close your flight plan, and it gives you the frequencies there. Again, if you're IFR, you'll be doing that with them in the air. But if you're flying VFR, then you do need to do that. And then you have to land at an airport with the immigrations, and there's a list of all the airports that are covered there. You'll also notice up here at the right, you've got to turn in 3 copies of C7A. They're actually at the end of this document, so you can print those out from this document. You'll have a $50 per aircraft fee, and then there's no fees for actual customs going in. If you fly VFR, you can contact Miami Center for Flight Following, and they'll give you a squawk code, and then it gives you the frequencies for that. So as you can see, there's quite a bit of information here. So that's the information for going out to the Bahamas. Then you have the information for coming back in, and coming back in, I'm actually going to do a separate video. So I'm only looking at going to the Bahamas at this particular point. And so here, here we've got departing the Bahamas. Oh, this is actually coming back in. So here are your airport information. You can see up here it says port of entry. So that tells you whether or not you have a port of entry. So as an example, we are going, and these are in order of state, or island. So you have to go through and find the actual place that you're going. So we are, let's see where we're at. We're going to be going to Stanley Key. Wow, where is it? Stella Maris. So Stella Maris is right here. It's got a 4,000-foot runway. They've got fuel, and then you can see under the port of entry, they do have a port of entry there. And then they have a telephone number that you can call. Now, you'll also notice most frequently asked questions are pretty handy to go through. And it says, one of the things here is if you're taking your pet, and if you are, it gives you a phone number to call. You probably are going to have to call the airport. In fact, I've got notes here. The phone number that ended up, that's the 242-338-2012 is for your pet. However, all they're going to do is direct you to go to the website for the agriculture department and file the paperwork there. The problem is it takes about 4 weeks to get, it's what it says anyway. It takes 4 weeks to get that paperwork done. So we were going to take our little Yorkie with us, but we don't think we have enough time now. So we're just going to leave him at home. But anyway, the questions actually have some really good questions and answers in here. There's really not a whole lot of a big deal. You'll notice under the equipment it says Mode C 12-inch tail numbers, and then the Coast Guard life vest. Again, that 12-inch tail number, you need to look up the requirements on that, because there are some stipulations for exceptions. Your plane doesn't have an area big enough for 12-inch, like some of the experimental airplanes maybe, or the age of the airplane and so forth. So you don't have to get flight following. We're probably going to be filing IFR on the trip, just because we normally file IFR. So we'll kind of, that'll be a little different if you're going VFR. And so that is really the main, obviously your passports and driver's license, that kind of stuff. If you want to fly between the islands, once you get there, you do have the ability to do that. You get a pass, and then you can just fly wherever you want to, with exceptions. You can't fly in Nassau without a flight plan, but everywhere else you can, most everywhere else you can just fly. And there's your pet. Your basic meds are accepted. The Bahamas basically accept everything the United States do. And honestly, I've never actually had anyone in the Bahamas ask me for my medical or pilot's license. I don't think I remember them ever asking for that. But we'll see on this trip. And so you've got your, departure, flight plans, weather briefings. Also, they recommend putting ADCUS, which is Advised Customs, in your comment section of your flight plan to let them know that you're coming. Now, when you come back into the United States, you actually have to place a phone call up to an hour before you leave to let them know you're coming. So that's something a little bit different, but again, we'll get into the returning stuff in a later video. So that is pretty much it for going into the Bahamas. And I do recommend getting this document because it does have a lot of good information in it, that kind of helps clear up some of the questions that you may have along the way. So we have everything that we can think of, or everything in this document done and ready to go. So we're going to be packing the airplane up later today. I'm going to fly down and get some gas. We are going to be stopping down on the east coast of Florida to fill up with gas before we go out, because gas is very expensive out in the Bahamas. So you do need to consider that, and then I'll videotape as much of the trip as I can and document any things that we run into that we may wish we had done different. We'll try to document in this video.